Jujutsu technique, activate, blah. It's time for Jujutsu Kaisen, ladies and gentlemen.
On KHANTENT!
KHANTENT! Most popular anime of the season, bar none. Let's see if it's good. But first, $10 bonus episodes available now on our subscribestar.com/KHANTENT. You can go check out the 3 episodes that'll be up now, including the new one.
I'm not pointing at anything. There's just stuff.
Urusei Yatsura 2, Beautiful Dreamer. Great movie. Go check it out. Hear what we have to think about it on the bonus episodes. But now, back to this nightmare.
生き様で後悔はしたくない。両面宿儺はまごうことなき呪いの王だ。
Felt wrong that you were the only one wearing sunglasses on this show.
It does feel better now that you have sunglasses back.
It's easier for me to do what I naturally do and not look anywhere and just stare into space.
I love the fact that I can look anywhere aimlessly and not have to worry about looking good. It's great. Casey Neistat was right.
So Jujutsu Kaisen is a new Shounen Jump manga series. We talked about the first episode on the seasonal review podcast.
Go check those out.
The first show we talked about. So if you want to hear our impressions of the first episode, go over there.
Link right here in the time code.
Talking about 2 through 5. And yeah, I mean, just getting right into it. This is like the most Shounen Jump a show could be in a way. It's like, I don't want to say it's bad or good. It's fine. It's like, if you ever watched like Kekkaishi or any of those like those Shonen Jumps that are like basically as good as the ones that everyone knows, but just don't have that like spark that would make it like, oh, this is so memorable. Like, this show, like, it has good things about it and good scenes and parts where I'm like, oh yeah, this is kind of like giving me that Shonen Jump magic. And there are unique things about it, but it overall, like, the feel of it is just so thoroughly steeped in Shonen Jump tradition that it's really hard for me not to feel like I am just like watching Bleach again to some degree at some times. It's at its best when it doesn't feel that way though, which like episodes 4 and 5 really started to give it its own identity to me.
It does start to diverge to get a little bit more mature, or at least violent, which is, it's nice.
Edgy is another word I would use.
It's nice in the sense that it feels like it's distancing itself more from those things it feels built out of. If I had to pick one series that this feels most similar to, it would definitely be Bleach. Yeah. Because while it's true, this man is possessed by the 9-tailed fox, and it comes out and gives him superpowers sometimes, but it's a nightmare, oh no! And, various other things that's exactly like lots of other series I've seen. The emphasis on style feels like the most powerful force in the show, especially with like the opening and the ending especially being like fashion focused. You feel the looming shadow of Taito Kubo looming over everything.
And the ED definitely succeeds, in my opinion, at being as good as like a classic Bleach ED. Like,
people love it, yeah.
It's the dancing, the way the character designs look. I assume it probably, I have not looked into this. I'm assuming it's probably the same director who did like the Yuri on Ice OP, because it has a very similar vibe to that.
Yeah.
Studio Mappa, don't quote me. But like, I love the ED. OP is fun too.
I love the OP. ED cucks get fucked. ED is shit. The opening is the best.
It's pretty good.
I've been having an ongoing battle with people about what's better, the opening or the ED. I was talking to some people.
Are you basing this more on song or video? Because like the video is like the best part of the ED for sure.
No, what is wrong with people? The opening is god tier. I was just having a fight about this yesterday about how the ending is devoid of like actual character stakes. It has nothing to do with anything. It's animated prettily,
fun dance party.
Exactly like you said. It's that like Yuri on Ice. Well, it's that we're just mapping what a human being did, and then we're tracing over it. So I'm like, I'm not impressed by that. Well, and the song in the opening is way more hype.
It's not that simple to do rotoscope animation, but like,
true.
I think I kind of agree with you in that, like, so the ED is their first actual visual introduction to the girl character in this show.
Right.
She looks nothing like she does in the show in the ED. She's got like space buns and is wearing like overalls, and she's got a bunch of shopping bags. She's just dancing and looking happy. It doesn't come off like her at all. To the extent that when this character was introduced in the show, I wasn't sure it was the same character for the ED.
That's fair. Although I think that the main reason for that is that there are elements of like, material girlism and the fact that she, hates the country, loves that she's moving to Tokyo and stuff. Like, there are elements there that, like, if you depicted, like, a day in her life, we'd see her, like, being, like, a happy-go-lucky teenage girl more, but we see her in
that's what I need
Jujutsu
to see.
Sorcerer
I need to
mode.
see that so that I can connect it more to the ED.
Sure,
where, my impression of that hairstyle change in the ED, because when the character finally shows up, I was like, oh, she looks so much worse, like, in the show than she does in the ED. And so I had to imagine the character designer who's doing the ED sitting down and being like, I'm not drawing this bitch without changing her fucking hair. Like, she gotta look cooler.
I suppose.
And then everybody on the show cried that they couldn't make the character just look that way all the time because they have to make it faithful to the manga, which is probably, like, the biggest problem I have with this show is it does feel very moving manga a lot of the time, where there's, like, characters just standing around talking, and like there's one shot even where a guy is dumping exposition on 3 other people, and I can see the spaces where the speech bubbles would be. It's like guy here, 3 people here, speech bubbles would be here, and like that layout isn't interesting in animation. It's just like it's a boring shot. That should have been reframed so that it doesn't include space for speech bubbles.
Well, you know what people are going to immediately say to push back on that? And this is my first thought as well. It's like, but Digi, like, the fights look so cool, and they're so slick.
The fights look cool.
But there's a dichotomy there. I mean, yes, the fights look great most of the time and are very well animated, and I love the same guy who directed God of High School. So those are hype and excellent. But the standing around, it's this common thing you see, like with Demon Slayer, right? This was a big thing with Demon Slayer. Everyone hypes up the fucking fights, and generally it's agreed that they look pretty cool, if nothing else, and that's true. But when I watch Demon Slayer, I'm like, holy shit, did these characters stand around and talk for a long time? And that's most of the runtime. So are you getting like your bang for your buck? I don't know.
This show has a real problem of being like just disorganized and weird in its pacing, where like it'll introduce to you a bunch of information that is not going to be relevant like immediately. Where like episode 2 starts, they just start like exposition dumping you on like what the world is, what the bad guys are, the school that they're going to, all this stuff, and like God, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, because there was something that had come up in episode 2 and wasn't relevant again until like episode 4 or 5, and it was kind of a moment where I was like, oh yeah, they did talk about that, didn't they? And I was like, why did they talk about it way back then instead of now? The
Setsuna fingers? I mean, that's
no,
important in episode 1.
It was something more backgroundy than that, like a type of character, like type of person who could exist in this world or something had been mentioned before, and then they finally show up. And I'm like, why didn't they explain that in the episode where the thing shows up?
Despite the fact that they go to this school, we don't see many other students. It is said that like there's very few students at this school, and we do meet them at the end of episode 5 a little bit, but it's true, we feel very narrow.
You have this feeling that like you see him establish himself in the dorm, so you're like, okay, we're gonna see him at school, but we don't. We cut immediately to them doing other stuff elsewhere, and it's like, well, we didn't need to learn about the school yet, because it's not relevant. Nothing interesting is happening at the school. It's like, it feels like the author knew all the establishing stuff that he felt was necessary to tell this story, and then just kind of dumped it all at the start instead of teaching us information when it will be relevant. The weirdest example of this is episode 3, which introduces the girl mostly. And throughout the episode, the point is supposed to be that she's from the countryside, she moved to Tokyo, and she is underestimating how much stronger curse demons are in Tokyo.
Right.
So they send her on this mission with main character guy, and they're like, oh yeah, she thinks she's a real badass, but she gonna learn today, like, Tokyo different. So she goes through all that, and then like at the moment when she's having that realization, when she's like been bested and she's like, oh fuck, Tokyo demons really are difficult. This is when it suddenly, we're like deep into this episode, it suddenly flashes back to why she moved to Tokyo, which is that there was this woman who was super nice, who she knew in the countryside, who I guess, this like image just kind of flashed by really quick, but it seemed like she was trying to build a highway out to this place or something, or she was like petitioning for a new road from Tokyo out to the middle of nowhere, and so everybody decided they hated her and thought she was too good for country bumpkins.
I thought it was just that she was from the city but moved out here. I don't know. I could be
There's
wrong.
like a sign, there's like a couple of like really brief shots where it shows signs that say like roadway petition project or something, like highway building. I don't know why they didn't just say these things in the dialogue if this was like, because it seemed totally unreasonable.
Show, don't tell, Digi. They're trying to be artful
They
here.
failed at that many times throughout these episodes, but like it was strange because the way that she explains it is just like, oh, everybody thought she was too good for them, and so they completely threw her out, which just seems like insane. Like she literally did nothing. They wouldn't just turn on this bitch for no reason, to the extent that they're like graffitiing her car and telling her to get the fuck out. Like, she must have done something.
I thought the implication was that she really had done nothing. She just represented a different way of life, and I hate that shit. So get the fuck out of here.
If that's true, then it was way over the top. That, like, they literally, like, spray paint her car to face her house because that bitch thinks she's better than us. Like, she's just a nice person. I don't know. So, but all of this inspired our main girl to, or not main girl, but this girl in our main party to leave the countryside and go to Tokyo. This is not really relevant to the arc of her realizing that ghosts are stronger in Tokyo than they are out in the countryside. It is her backstory. We could have learned it at any point in the episode. There was no reason for it to dramatically come out, like, in this moment when she's getting defeated, because, like, it has nothing to do with this situation. It's just why she's here.
That's true.
But it has nothing to do with the actual situation happening, so it felt so disjointed and weird to me.
I feel like they're setting up. I think there's going to be more with her backstory, and we'll, like, get to it, but this is just how they chose to introduce it.
It's just the timing of everything. Everything happens at, like, information is given to us at weird moments. Stuff like we are information dumped on things that don't seem to matter, and then we learn things that seemed like they could have been more relevant 10 minutes ago, or like something comes up 2 episodes later and you're like, oh, well, that was what they were talking about before. Why didn't they wait? Just like episodes 2 and 3 to me felt very jumbled. Like as though this author is somebody who has great ideas for like scenes and like what is going to happen in the story, but not necessarily like what the connecting threads between that are. Because once we get into episodes 4 and 5, it just becomes a scene that lasts like 2 episodes, and it's like, oh, this is like an arc. Like, this is shonen, you know? Like, fuck all the exposition dumping. I don't care about the world building. Just get me into the cool shonen stuff, and then it does that, which is cool.
I liked some of those scenes leading up to it. Like in episode 2, when he has to do that little the little test with the principal to prove, what was he trying to prove again? That he wanted it for himself. Like I talked about this in our first impressions video, but like that scene was good. It made me think that okay, our character isn't just like doing this for other people. He's got his own motivations. That's endearing me to him as like an actor in his own life. He's not just doing what other people are telling him to. Cool. He's got motivation and stuff. And, you know, his whole grappling with being possessed by Setsuna, that in typical shonen main character way, he just deals with offhandedly. He's like, no big deal. Yeah. It's fine. I got it covered. I'm going to slay the Demon King. Don't worry about it. And then, so there were little scenes there that were decent, but I am feeling more momentum, more excitement in 4 and 5. And specifically, I suppose we could just talk about this now, like the stakes that have been set now of, by letting Setsuna take over, as we see over here, and what Setsuna does in order to strategically make it so that he cannot be removed from this body. I mean, I'll just say, by ripping out his own fucking heart from his vessel so that he can survive, like, as possessing this body. But if main character guy tries to take back over, the guy will just die, so he won't do it. That was big brain activity, and I thought that was like really smart and a useful thing, and more importantly, in character for what a evil demon curse object would do in this situation.
And a great excuse to have the main character tear his own fucking heart out.
Like, yep.
That's the kind of stuff you want to happen. You just want a good excuse for why it's happening, and this was a good excuse.
That moment, and the fact that it leads to a subsequent battle of him versus like Shikigami, Sasuke equivalent guy, like that was first like, oh shit, the stakes, I mean, really escalated in that fight as they're fighting all over the city and stuff. That was good stuff. Really enjoyed seeing it. I mean, I won't even bother. They fight like another one of the monsters, another one of these special grade. They eat another one of the fingers. Yeah. So I believe that's 4 now he's consumed out of 20. We're almost 25%. We are 20% done. Yeah. They got to pace these out a little bit slower.
Well, and I'm curious about like where this show's going power scaling wise, because I'm worried in a way. everyone's really badass in this show. Like, everyone's personality is kind of like, I am incredibly badass, and they're all really strong. So
this isn't like early Naruto when they're really very humble characters with very little power.
This is like the power scaling we get to in episode 4 is normally like 50 to 100 episodes into a shonen. Like, this is like city destroying power levels. The demon inside of our main character is like Alucard level of like he can just bend reality, change his body shape, like kind of do whatever he wants. He's like really, I mean Alucard in Hellsing.
In Hellsing, obviously,
But the fight gets so over the top and so crazy that it's like, okay, well, like you said, there are super high stakes in that the main character like could feasibly die in this situation.
He has died. The main character's dead. It's done. We're at the end of the series. What a conundrum.
Obviously, we know he's not going to die. And
I think he'll be all right.
Like, this is one of those things where it's like you can kind of do this scene once, but now the question is like, well, we've just seen the bad guy or the good bad guy be so insanely overpowered that like the level of threat that would now have to be introduced for us to not believe that this demon could just stop it. And on the one hand, this episode has some great like mind game stuff where like, you know, main character guy is trying his hardest not to unleash the demon, and he like gets his hand cut off, he's fucking getting his body seared apart, and he finally realizes like, I am going to die if I don't let this demon out. I have to.
Very conveniently, one of the powers of our demon is to restore lost limbs. Isn't that convenient? What if one of the other characters lost their limbs? Maybe they wouldn't be so lucky, but they just do that typical thing.
This is another part, again, where I'm saying like, it's okay to do all this once, because the second he lost his hand, I said either he's going to grow it back or he's going to get a new hand. I was hoping for new hand. Wasn't surprised when it grew back though. Like, but when you see all the demon's powers, it was just as cool as if he had a new hand. It's like, okay, he's got all kinds of crazy shit he can do. Awesome. Like, the enemy they were fighting in the episode, like the whole first half of the episode is all this exposition to be like, this is an S-class demon, way stronger than all this other shit, firebombing, it wouldn't be enough. But the whole time that this guy's fighting it, he's just like, you're weak, you're a little bitch, you're nothing. It's literally just like the Alucard fighting the guy in who invades the Hellsing place, where he just like, you know, you can't even morph, like you can't even do you even lift, bro? And then just like kills it very easily. But whereas in Hellsing, we have the assurance that Alucard is under Integra's control. In this show, it's the only thing controlling this demon is the fact that it's stuck in this guy's body. And so the gambit he basically pulls is, well, fuck it, I'll just let myself die then, if that's what's necessary. So now they're going to have a more functional relationship, I guess.
That's the thing. Clearly, all this really, for all the big booms and shouts and destruction stuff, this is clearly to establish what is going to be the ongoing relationship between Guy and the nine-tailed fox that he's got buried inside of him. That's what this is all for. Nine-tailed fox? Or? I'm saying that because it's just a Naruto type thing. But
another fox it kind of reminds me of. Have you ever seen Natsume Yujincho? Or
I don't think so.
Natsume's Book of Friends. It's a pretty cute little show about.
Oh, that's the new one about the fox spirit girl, right?
No, this is a show that's got like 7 seasons now. But it's about a boy who moves out to the countryside and learns that his grandma, like he can see ghosts, and his grandma could also see ghosts. And she used her ability to see ghosts to beat them up and steal their names. And now he's trying to give them all their names back. But he's doing this with the assistance of this cat god creature that basically like wants to eat him and take the book, but wants him to go get all the names first so that he can, like, because if you own a spirit's name, you control it. So. On the one hand, it's evil and wants to eat him and take over. But on the other hand, they're best friends, kind of, and they have a relationship building. And I think that's what it's going to be like here, where like the demon inside of him is going to learn how to be less of a demon because of this guy.
Well, you know, there's an interesting point at one point. I think that there's implications of this when, during the fight, when Setsuna Demon Man is fighting the other special class demon, he says something about how you... and this guy too, none of you understand what curses really are. And it's possible that that was just him being like, let me just power up and show you what real power strongness is. But I felt like I was getting an implication that like, this series, in typical shonen way, it's not going to be that deep or interesting. We're going to go into what is a curse? What does it mean to have these negative feelings piled up inside yourself? Because we get a little thing of the main character using like curse power a little bit. He's got all his feelings of resentment and fear that he's going to die. He has to channel all that into his fist and then do a curse punch. is there going to be like this guy's like the strongest cursed demon of all time, right? Maybe it's because the most injustice was done to him, you know? He didn't choose to be a cursed being. I mean, I'm just speculating here. But I see many ways. This series is entirely focused on curses. There's no like other magic. It's all curse. So like I feel like some exploration into what a curse is and why it's there is probably coming eventually.
You actually made me think it would be interesting if we get a backstory on the demon. Like
it's gonna happen.
Maybe he was like a more normal or not evil creature at some point, and then some fuck shit happened, and that's why I'm cursed.
That's my guess.
Like, if I had to say what I think the underlying sort of metaphor or like main appeal of this show is, the idea of like I'm thinking about like it's a teenage boy, and one day he realizes he has this dark impulse to kill and fuck everything, and the voice is literally like telling him like all this fuck up shit it's gonna do if it gets loose, and you know, it's like. It's got that like kind of Chunibyo thing of like there's a demon inside of me, like there's a darkness looming, but it's like a good way of just dealing with the fact that like, you know, coming into adulthood is constantly about metering like your dark thoughts about how fucked the world is with the fact that you have to live in it and be a hero and shit, you know, and like it's interesting that the two characters are so extreme, and that the main guy is like, not that he's like heroic naturally. Well, I guess he is, but like his granddad told him like go help people. He didn't necessarily feel motivated to do that, but it's more that he just naturally would, you know, like he's just a nice guy who helps people out anyways.
Yeah.
Whereas the demon is obviously the polar opposite, just wants to kill and murder everybody. So like having them both be on such polar extremes, it's kind of Devilman-like. Where like it's kind of similar to Amon possessing Akira, but Akira doesn't have as much control over Amon in the beginning as this kid does. So, yeah, I guess like the main challenge I see in this show is finding ways to create stakes when the main character seems invincible, you know?
They're gonna get to that real fast. They have to, because that is, as a long-running shonen, long-ish, it's fairly new, they have to establish power levels in a stable way. But, you know, this is the thing. This series, and I feel like in general, in the zeitgeist, we're not getting a lot of, like, traditional shonen series about, like, young kid or teenager or whatever, starts off with nothing, gets a little bit of power, and then like works his way up. Naruto developed Shadow Clone Jutsu episode 1. Right. He got the Rasengan. He developed, you know, he learned to limited degrees to use the nine-tailed fox's powers. He gets, you know, Wind, Rasen, Shuriken later on. And you set up fights specifically so those players can use those powers specifically. Yeah. We're not seeing a lot of that. Even Bleach had plenty of that. It had tons of that stuff. The whole Bankai training arc, learning to use Getsuga Tensho, all that stuff. I don't get a lot of that vibe from this show, and I just think that when you don't have a lot of that stuff, you have to survive on your like ideas, and I'm not sure this has like the most amazing ideas going on. So I don't know.
Like I said, there's good scenes. There's good ideas of like scenes where characters are going to do a thing or say a thing, but like the actual themes are not explored in a really interesting way, because it has. Super Eye Patch Wolf's recent video about Bleach, he complained that like the biggest problem in Bleach is that Ichigo just gets stronger. Like he just has realizations while he's fighting, and then like says something, and then just beats the enemy. Like you don't have a lot of him like learning a new move. And
training Bankai is the main thing. But even when he trained Bankai, most people have to train for 100 years. He was given a perfect training thing by Urahara to be the special boy who could get it in 3 days. And then he did.
Yeah.
And he had to work hard, but
that kind of, this show kind of has the same thing where there's like, each time the main character's in like a scenario where it's like, he's going to die, I guess, or like something bad is happening, and then he just kind of like wakes up to what he needs to do and then does it. You know, like there's not enough like external challenge. It's always just like he just needs to like think a little bit differently and then he'll be fine, kind of thing.
Well, because this is the whole thing. He isn't, main character isn't like the other characters who have trained and acquired like their own curse powers. Yeah. He was given it, and this is, I mean, we talked about this already, but like we need to find a way to diminish how much power he has, because right now he's 0 or 100 completely. Right. We need to find a way to limit it, and he can slowly build up over time, because if all he can do is fuck up and die, or unleash this guy, then every fight he's just going to unleash the guy.
I'm going to assume there's going to be some kind of major limitation put on him now that he has pulled his heart out and everything. Maybe it's going to change the dynamic. Like, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, tons of people watching this will already know who have read the manga.
Sure.
But we are actually embarking on a new anime series here. So
Indeed.
If you haven't read ahead, know better than we do, and we'll all be curious together here on KHANTENT.
So, to be fair, I don't think this is bad. I mean, you said before, it's not like bad or good. Yeah. I think the fights are kind of neat.
The fights are pretty fun. I mean, episodes 4 and 5 were a lot of fun because gory shit started happening.
I was going to say, the most personality. Episode 1 was pretty solid. Episode 2 and 3, not so great. 2 was okay at times. 3, that was the worst one so far.
Yeah.
4 and 5, good things are happening. There's more creativity and personality in the characters, in Setsuna and whatnot. Yeah. And I feel that momentum is being gained. We're establishing norms that hopefully will carry us to satisfying shonen battles and stuff.
Yeah, like with shonen action series, like it lives and dies on hype moments. Like the parts you're gonna remember are like the big 2-page spread where he tore his fucking heart out, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, it's all about like having a good excuse for why that's happening. Because if obviously every manga would just have a guy tearing their heart out if it was so easy to get a punch, but like the logic for why it was happening here was solid, and you're like, oh shit, like even the pulling of the heart out itself isn't even the coolest part so much as the fact that he actually does die,
Yeah.
And it's like or having lost his hand initially, it's like I didn't believe he was going to never have his hand again, but it's still cool to see it actually happen and then feel like, okay, like there had been a moment in episode 2 or 3 where a demon holds a kid hostage by pointing its nail at the kid's neck, and I really hated that scene because the demon comes to the wall, it grabs the kid, and my immediate out loud statement was, eat that kid. Eat him. And my expectation is like demon could pick kid up, eat one of his legs off. Kid's horrified, passes out, screaming. Gotta save him. Gotta try to beat this demon and save this kid's life or something. But no, the demon holds a fingernail to his neck, and I was like, that's the least threatening. Like, I know this kid's gonna be fine.
And then, I mean,
immediately.
Miraculously, through the wall comes our main character who grabs him and pulls him back and saves the kid. So stakes. This does feel like a show with low stakes. Limbs that were destroyed, they're all back.
Right.
Any characters we thought were going to die hasn't happened.
Well, in that scene, it's kind of saved a little bit by the fact that the sort of turmoil is that the girl is just she's like, oh, I don't know if I can stop. Like he's got a hostage. What do I do? Main character guy just does not accept the premise of this hostage situation and just beats the bad guy up because obviously for the demon to even have taken a hostage, it would have to be so much weaker than them that it needed something, and it's like, well, if it's that much weaker, then just fucking. But, it felt like that was the point, but at the same time, it was still frustrating because I knew from the second he pointed his finger at the kid's neck, okay, well, nobody's gonna die. They're just gonna beat this demon. I just want I want it to be a little scarier. And there's a part in episode 4 where they find a fucking half-eaten corpse of a police officer. So that was when I was kind of like, okay.
Oh well,
we're getting a little.
I don't know I think there was a weird conversation about that guy that was like, no, we're not going to come back and bury this guy. We're going to leave the body because his mother was outside crying for this guy. I couldn't tell if he was an inmate, if this was a jail, or if that guy was working here.
I think they say something about he had murdered a child or something.
All right, well this was nuts. This man had committed the great sin that dehumanizes him for all time. We don't need to worry about him. That he had driven without a license and hit a child, and this was his second offense of driving without a license. Clearly, the death penalty is warranted. So I couldn't tell exactly what the implications of that were. But hey, what did you think? What did you think about, at the end of episode 5, when we meet our new wacky characters? Glasses Girl.
Oh, yeah.
Panda. What? That's so wacky.
A fucking talking panda.
And what, miso ramen speaking guy with cursed mouth.
I kind of got a sense from episode 2 of the author's sense of humor when we got the weird little green bear kappa thing.
Yeah.
That it kind of it's beating him up with the big muscly arms. It looked like a meme, like one of those memes of like pedo bear or something, just raging out, getting roided and beating somebody up. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, that tracks with something that a Bleach obsessive would also think is cool. And now there's a talking panda. like Tekken. There's a girl with a big hammer. It's like this show is definitely like. It's really weird because it's now injecting some goofiness into it, but like it mostly just wants to be super badass. Like all the characters are just like, yeah, I'm fucking cool. I kill people. I don't give a fuck about anything. Like this world is dumb, and I gotta fight demons. So like. Having these new characters show up, I'm like, I don't know where the tone of this show is going. I don't know if these are going to be good characters or shit. I cannot tell. Is there going to be a serious arc with the panda? Is he a character that we are going to feel for? I hope so.
This is a shonen, so I think we'll get to all of these guys at least a little bit. But, I mean, I got to tell you, we talked at the beginning of this about how this feels like every other shonen.
Yeah.
How did you feel when our new characters say, all right, guys, your friend's dead, that's too bad, we're recruiting you. Because it's time for Jujutsu Kaisen tournament arc to begin.
Catch that.
She says it's time for the between school, our sister school contest. It's going to be Jujutsu user versus Jujutsu sorcerer or whatever. They're just obviously setting up an inter-school tournament arc. We're going straight into tournament. We haven't established these characters. I don't know any of these fucking people. And yes, tournament arc is a fine place to establish things, but
arc is cruise control.
You don't use that. Yeah,
Shonen.
it's just cruise control. So that's concerning. That I feel them shifting hard into the easiest possible premise when creative stuff had just happened. I need that resolved. Maybe it'll all come together really well, and maybe the next couple episodes will really cohere things and we'll get power levels established, or maybe not. It'll be creative and different and I'll be fucking eating my crow and shit. But I'm a little concerned. It's not bad. There are good things, but I just need to see where it goes from here, I guess.
Knowing that there might be a tournament arc does concern me, but just because we just watched God of High School.
Maybe that'll be one episode. I don't know. It'll be an even faster God of High School tournament all in one episode.
The show is Jujutsu Kaisen has been translated as Sorcerer Fight in English.
Which may be the worst name of a series ever translated in the history.
Pretty fucking bad.
Of history.
It would be very appropriate if it just becomes a bunch of sorcerers fighting for however long.
It's just none of that has anything to do with the plot. We're supposed to be collecting fingers and slaying demons. But again, maybe I'll be
Maybe everybody at the tournament will have a finger, or
maybe
a finger there.
Maybe there's more than one person who's eaten these fingers, and so he'll have to eat them, and then.
I definitely feel this show has potential, but it's very disorganized. I would have to. It would take a lot to give me faith that there was a grand plan behind this all, because of the fact that it feels like a smattering of ideas of he knew, in episode 3, he knew what the girl's backstory was, why she moved from the countryside to Tokyo, and he knew that her arc was going to be Tokyo demons bad, more bad than you expected, so therefore you're going to have to get stronger. But how all of that turned into a story was just kind of messy,
clumsy, didn't feel great, don't really care about the character. I need some more fancy shit.
So it's maybe there's going to be cool powers in this turn. Again, the power scaling that we saw so far is if we have to then trap this inside of a fucking building or something, I'm going to be well, I don't we were destroying buildings. Let's not go in a building.
I mean, Sasuke guy.
Please be an outdoor tournament at least. I'm tired of the fucking same sports arena fucking battles.
Sasuke guy has very adaptable powers. He could be the main character. I get how his powers apply to all these different situations. He did well against Setsuna guy for a while. Girl with her nails, all right, it's a one-trick pony, but I get how it works.
Has the silver-haired dude
He's been stated to be the strongest guy.
Yeah.
But he hasn't done anything.
He's got as much billing as the other characters on all the
because he's just literally Kakashi. He in every way, including physical. Is he
actually older than the other characters, though?
Yeah, he's a teacher and they're students.
Oh, okay.
So yes, that guy, they're sure hyping that guy up.
Yeah.
What's that guy gonna do? Something. I don't know. Hopefully
again, just why even have this character in the story if he hasn't done anything for 5
Because he looks so cool, and it's the build-up. He's a build-up character. He's gonna get a fight one day, and we're gonna get blown away.
I just wish there was something I want, with Kakashi, he's not A, he's more prominent, and B, he is teaching the kids. We want to know more about him because he's mysterious, but we care about him because he reads porn on the battlefield and says funny things and eats ramen.
But this guy buys souvenirs. That's his wacky thing he does.
It's true.
Aren't you endeared?
A souvenir from Sendai or whatever. I guess he's a traveler. He goes around places. A lot of this just kind of slid right off of me, It's that feeling of, man, I wish I cared about these characters enough to, I wish I felt more connected to them, but they haven't done anything interesting yet. It's that, what was it, the other show I kept saying that about recently? That, like, there's a bunch of characters that seem like they could be fun, but
God of High School? I mean, it seems applicable.
That was how I had felt about, I think, well, but we don't really like the characters from, like, pretty early in that show.
Some of them, like, yeah, that's true.
Maybe it is Rental Girlfriend.
Decadence? Rental Girlfriend? I don't know. What are we talking about?
One of the shows we talked about. This show has the same problem of, like, these characters are, like, they feel more like ideas for characters so far, like, than people. Like, by this point in My Hero Academia, like, when you watch episode 3 of that and, like, watch Deku, like, actually fucking do all this training, like move it, clean up the whole beach. And
yeah, that's great. That's great.
Memorable, emotional. I cared about him and his struggle like immediately. Granted, with My Hero, I ended up just kind of not caring about anything else enough to get as invested as I wanted to. But like that has a really strong start. You really feel the main character, like you really get him and what he's trying to do. This guy, I mean, part of the thing is that he doesn't really know what he wants to do at first. Like, kind of episode 2 is him even like getting to a point of being like an operative character instead of just things happening to him.
But you know what Deku has? Deku has that thing I was talking about before. Starts with 0. We see him earn every single power along the way, and people fucking love it.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have.
Yeah, so this is, I guess we're both saying that like this has interesting ideas, but we need to know like what is the actual arc of this character.
We just don't know. We don't know where it's going exactly. Sure, we'll collect the fingers. What does that look like? What's gonna happen?
What does it mean for the characters? What will it change about them to collect these fingers? What needs to change about them? You know, what's wrong with this guy? He seems fine. Like
I don't even really need that much. I'm satisfied with I want to be a good hero guy because my grandpa died and it was his dying wish. Just get there in a like Naruto becoming Hokage. That's all I need to know. All right, he's gonna be the strongest ninja.
It's not even that he has to do anything, but like, what is the effects that he has on other people? Like, there has to be some human element to what's going on of like the consequences of this fight beyond just like protect people or they will die. It's like, well, if you don't protect this guy, then someone else will be affected in this way, or these. There just needs to be like more plot, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm sure we'll find that out.
On the next episode of Jujutsu Kaisen, KHANTEHNT. One of these days. We got bonus episodes again. Let me remind you to go to subscribestar.com/KHANTEHNT and buy them. Urusei Yatsura and the other stuff. It's going to be gangbusters. More next month. Have a good time, everybody.
Wow.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.